Greetings everybody, this is Serpentine451 and welcome back to another episode of Weeb Warriors. Now, it's going to be me by myself yet again for this week because Jay's busy and Jordan is still behind. So, let's actually get to the reviews, starting with Vinland Saga Episode 10, Ragnarok. And the blurb pretty much states, Ashkeled's army separates from the main army of Denmark and attacks a village 100 kilometers to the west. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that in the summary. But here's essentially what happened in the episode. Well, we mostly focus on some of the other characters, like the second Prince of Denmark, who is leading the forces at London, and Thorkill, really antsy and adamant in fighting, noticing that people aren't really engaging in battle with him. But when one of his subordinates tells him that the second Prince of Denmark was leading these forces, he decides to get the gumption to attack. Whereas Ashkeled and his crew are, like I mentioned earlier, at a village 100 kilometers to the west. But the main point of the episode that I want to talk about is Ashkeled and Thorfinn's conversation that they had about towards the end of the episode, where Ashkeled talks about how some civilizations are bound to be destroyed, mostly referring to Rome, and how the Roman settlement, or the pieces of the Roman settlement there in Britannia, remain. Since the Saxons destroyed them, it's going to be up to them as Vikings to destroy the Saxons, pretty much in a cyclical order. And when a messenger of the of the prince's army went to look for the main forces, he ran into Ashkeled's mercenary force, which leads ultimately to his death. And Ashkeled leads his forces to go and fight Thorkill, which leaves me under the impression that Ashkeled wants to die in glory, or he's afflicted with something that will lead ultimately to his death, and will put Thorfinn on the path to actually finding himself, I guess, not be defined by revenge. But anyway, that's the episode of Vinland Saga. A great episode. I mean, this show is solid. It is great. Pretty much one of the best shows out there. And yeah, that's about it. Next, we'll go to How Heavy Are Those Dumbbells You Lift? Episode 11. How are you spending New Year's? Essentially, the girls are celebrating New Year's and are heading to one of the shrines. Apparently, the shrine that they're heading to is one for a muscle deity, which is headed by Machio's family, who Machio is a priest there, so he's the muscle priest. That part of the episode was actually pretty funny, and also that climbing upstairs is a good part of exercising. Very nice. And also, after going to the temple and whatnot, Gina wants to work out on the street with the girls at a local park, since the gym would probably be closed at that point in time, if memory best serves me. And the only thing that they found was just a little hanging bar. That's about it for a local park. And Akemi actually just decides to, pull out her book from the muscle-bound professor, and they actually do a bit of, I'd say basic muscle training without any equipment, which after the end of that little session, they got a bunch of dirty looks from the neighbors of the community. And they also get to do another idol thing where Mr. Director is just shocked and amazed that Satome pulled off a move called the neck bridge, which helps professional wrestlers not get broken necks, apparently. That's awesome. Really good. 10 out of 10 episode. Very funny. And the dub really just needs to say nice bulk instead of true power lies within or some other bullshit. Yep. That is true. Now let's go with the Crunchyroll shows. I think the show that we'll start off with would be the one that I watched recently, the last show that I watched, actually. I'll actually review them, I should say, in the order I watched them in. So, Isekai Cheat Magician, episode 10, Turning Point. So basically, this is the end of this episode leads to the major conflict of this series, since it's probably not going to continue after 12 episodes. Well, the episode focuses primarily on a fight scene between Cassium and Taichi, where Cassium uses an idol to suppress a good portion of Taichi's powers. And this is all for the purpose of Cassium wanting revenge and making sure that he can one-up Taichi, which he ultimately didn't. And that's pretty much it. Also, we get new weapons for our cast of characters as a reward for the battle that happened in the previous episode. And Taichi finds a katana. Very nice. Next up, If It's For My Daughter, I'd Even Defeat a Demon Lord. Episode 11, The Young Girl in the Kitten Gathering. Basically, in this episode, Latina reconvenes with her friends at school, and she tells them about some of the adventures that they had. Well, she had with Dale on their trip to Dale's hometown. And also that when Sylvia mentions a gathering of cats, Latina wants to see the cats, which leads Mr. Jill to introduce her and Dale to a gentleman that has a bunch of cats. But Dale recalls that his grandfather knew an adventure from the east that Jill Vester referred to Latina, which ended up being the same person that Gojo, that being his first or surname, I believe. He mentions that he knew Dale's grandfather and how he's surprised that his grandfather married his grandmother. And also, one of the best things about this episode is that everyone is just really anticipating, most of the episode talks about how when kids grow up, they can grow up pretty fast and how some choices can be made, but still, I think the one thing I'll take away from this episode is that Latina tries her best to get the attention of Gojo's cats, and most of them just aren't a big fan of her until one cat just decides, yeah, I'll be your friend, it's all cool. Very sweet, very wholesome show. 10 out of 10 would recommend to a friend. Let's see, I think... Well, it won't exactly be in order. Next up, Isekai Mom. I know the actual title is much longer, but I just can't be bothered to remember it. Like I said last week and whatnot. So, episode 10. Information. The With Mommy Guild welcomes all. Wait, that's a bunch of uninvited guests. Essentially, the episode focuses on 3 would-be assassins to take out the guild, but Mamako and her true power, she trounces these individuals through the power of being a mom, which leads to other moms in the village outside of the tower to join the guild and rescue their sons and daughters. But then a bunch of shenanigans, well, with the mothers ensues before they even actually climb into the tower. Admittedly, that was pretty funny. And also, Pochi, one of the assassins, just makes me laugh because he's expected to do lewd things with Mamako, and Mamako just acts like 100% mom. It's actually very funny. Anyway, one of the things that I laughed about this episode is the dum-dum that is Adamante. Adamante is very, very funny. She tries to be all tough and stuff, and she's an idiot. An idiot that basically opens up her goddamn mouth to tell her plans to anybody who will listen. Still dumb broad, but very funny. And I love how the girls, mostly Weiss and Medi, just really give her shit. It's just hysterical. Still, good episode. Very, very funny. Next up, Are You Lost? Episode 12. How to Replenish Water. Shion and Homare. Shion was saved by Homare after just getting swept away by the sea. And now that they realize that, Homare realized that she didn't bring any drinking water for the pair. And this leads to them actually getting bat guano, water infested with bat guano. Which ultimately leads to them actually just shoving this filthy water into their bums when they're at sea. But the show ends with the girls uniting with Motsu and Asuka, and they share a fine meal, and they plan to take a boar. Kill a boar with their snare, and we finally got to see in much detail, as per the fan service of this show, Shion's panties, which are very flowery and nice, and a teaser at the end signifying that Homare's father is going to come by and rescue the girls. That is awesome. Very funny show. So sad to see it go, but still, 10 out of 10 show. Would recommend to everybody. Next up on our list is Magical Senpai. Now, if you saw Jay's review of it, or aka Mr. J's review of Magical Senpai, since he's making them YouTube bucks, he can't go into detail. in this vignette, when they actually are making the balloon animals, well, the balloon dog, they actually, one part is where the pink balloon looks like a dong, looks like a dick, looks like a major dick, and assistant's like, yep, that's lewd, very, very lewd indeed. And I thought that was really amusing. And Senpai trying her best to make a dog, but instead she makes salmon rolls and dicks. Then we have Senpai actually trying to pull off the trick and looks like a ghost to the security guard, almost scaring him half to death. And also Madara being jealous, Madara and Senpai being jealous of each other, getting the attention of Assistant-kun. And this show was actually very funny, very enjoyable, and I'm sad to see it go. Like, good show, 10 out of 10. Next up, we will have Dr. Stone, episode 11, Clear World. Essentially, in this episode, we have Senku and the gang, well, in the Kingdom of Science, I should say, making glass. Now, they wanted to make glass so they can actually get to their main goal of making a drug that can cure Ruri from her sickness. And through the power of science, Senku actually discovers that, well, through deductive reasoning and the power of science, or just common knowledge, I should say, Senku realizes that Suika is nearsighted, so she has poor eyesight. And they call it the fuzzy disease because apparently they don't have glasses. So he develops glasses for a little helmet to help her see sunflowers clearly for the first time, and she just cries in amazement and joy. And they also enlist the help of an artisan. Well, I say enlist, but Chrome basically kidnaps this old man who has rippling JoJo-esque muscles. He's basically saying, like, your crafting skills are shit. Allow me to actually take care of business here, kiddos. It was just great. Pure amazement. Very funny. And slowly but surely, everything's coming to fruition with the plan to defeat Magma and making sure he doesn't become the chieftain of the village. Then we have our last two shows on the review docket. Danmachi Season 2, Episode 10, Argonaut, Longing to be a Hero. Well, to finish off this arc with the Ishtar Familia, Bell was able to save Haruhime from being a tool to the Ishtar Familia, as he defeats not only the head of the Familia in a bout that ultimately leads her to the bottom of the temple, only to be, like, utterly destroyed by Freya's right-hand man. But he also takes on Aisha, in a single one-to-one battle. And he was able to save Haruhime when he basically says, I don't care if you're a prostitute, I'm going to save you because that's what heroes do. And it really got through to her, which was great. And then the fact that Ishtar gets taken down by Freya, in her mind, her rival for affection, as she tries to use Bell against Freya, which Freya ultimately is like, oh, why? I heard this information from you. The fact that Belle cannot be charmed by goddesses. And that makes Freya's like, yes. Okay. So he's gonna be a bit of a challenge. I love a challenge. Hell yeah. But now you're gonna die. Bye, Ishtar. Say hello to the other gods for me. And also, it's nice to see the crew actually come back together at the end. Everyone, like, this arc has been great. Just fantastic. This season's actually been pretty darn good. Love Danmachi. Very fun. 10 out of 10 show. Then we get to Fire Force, our last show on the review docket. So it's Fire Force episode 10, The Promise. Basically, all the captains of the Specialized Fire Force gather to discuss the current events with the White Clad and the Evangelists. And where we meet the other captains, the captain of the 7th, basically not being a practitioner of the Church of Sol, basically says, well, I'm going to help out here, but I'm not going to deal with any of this nonsense. I'm bouncing. And we also got to see a conversation between Shinra and Joker. Joker basically explaining that Shinra's little brother, Sho, is a commander of the White Clad and the second in command of the Evangelists. Which ultimately at the end of the episode turned out to be true. And how this revelation really messed with him. And how the rest of District 8 basically tried their best to kind of like get him to talk. And it was a great moment. A really great moment in this show. Really. I mean, I'm really enjoying this series. It makes me want to actually read the manga, which I've been meaning to do for the longest time. And just enjoyable. Very enjoyable. I would recommend this to anyone who likes characters that want to be a hero, or just finds stuff very interesting. Like, I find this world very interesting. But anyway, that's essentially it on the reviews, so let's get to the soapbox discussion. Well, actually, it may have been a topic that I've mentioned in the past, but I just wanted to, like, include it for just my own amusement. And that's how, when you're dating, like, anime and dating. Now, not to say that anime characters dating would be a bit of an issue, far from it. Actual, like, canon relationships are a thing in the anime community. But what I'm trying to say is that when nerdy individuals such as myself and a few others are single for the time being and want to share interests with many other people whom, until recently, never really got the chance to be into anime or whatnot, or are into anime and haven't watched in a while, or are watching anime on the regular. But for those of us who are into anime or other nerdy things, and our potential love interests or significant others aren't quite into it, what are shows that can ease them into it? Much like our soapbox discussion about how do we get some of our friends into anime that haven't seen it before. And the same kind of rule of thumb, at least to me, applies here. Get to know the person that you're gonna go on dates with or is your significant other. Like, what are their interests? What kinds of genres are they into? And just work from there. And that's essentially what I wanted to say about that. But also, when you have nerdy pickup lines, use them at the right moment. Like, don't go like know your audience, so to speak. when using pickup lines that are like nerdy or have anime references in general. Now, I used a Pokemon pickup line recently that garnered some great results. But anyway, this has been another episode of Weeb Warriors. Hopefully the guys will join me again before this season is out and we get into fall. Well, until then guys, I will see you next time.